All right, guys, so I've discovered possibly the wokest show I've ever seen in my life, with probably the wokest panel of women that I've ever seen in my life. And this show is called The Real, okay? And they're talking about a very, very interesting topic, right? They're talking about whether or not white people should be included in diversity and inclusion initiatives, right? When people are talking about diversity, are white people included in that conversation is what they're talking about, right? And the background in regards to why they're talking about this topic involves a very, very interesting case of discrimination against a white man in North Carolina that lost his job after his company tried to be more woke, right? They had their own diversity and inclusion initiative that allegedly led to him losing his job because he's a white man, right? So obviously he doesn't count according to the wokes. And they replaced him with two women, right? A black woman and a white woman. And I'm assuming that they count more women as being diverse. So yeah, this guy won the lawsuit, right? He won $10 million. And the woke revolutionaries aren't exactly happy about that. So they're going to have a discussion about this. And I want to react to it because for whatever reason, these people, it seems like some of these people on these panels, they don't think that white people should be included in diversity. At least that's what it sounds like. But before we get into this, I want to actually play the news clip of this situation so that you guys get all the details, the actual details of this case, before we get into their reaction. Take a look.
Jury has awarded a former Novant Health executive $10 million after he claimed in a lawsuit he was fired because he's a white man.
WBTV's Didi Gatton joins us now in studio with more on what was learned about this. Didi?
Jamie and Molly, David Duval's attorney spoke to us today on camera. He says his client was the senior vice president for marketing and communications at Novant Health for nearly 5 years. He's now come out the winner after being fired less than a week before his 5th work anniversary.
The jury foreperson was a black woman who was the director of HR at Freightliner. Or I don't know if she's the director, but she's in HR at Freightliner. And she thought that the way that this was handled was wrong.
In 2018, we're told Duval was fired and replaced by 2 women, one a racial minority with less work experience, during a diversity and inclusion initiative. The goal was to diversify Novant senior leadership. After being fired, Duval sued Novant Health. Yesterday, a North Carolina jury sided with Duval. Court records reveal Duval proved his race and gender were motivating factors in Novant Health's decision to fire him. The jury also ruled Novant Health couldn't prove they would have made the same decision to fire Duval regardless of his race or gender.
This is not a case about sort of against diversity and inclusion. He supports diversity and inclusion. It's a case saying that you can't fire people for the purpose of creating opportunities to hire people of a different race or gender. That's illegal.
Novant Health responded to the outcome, saying they're disappointed with the verdict. Novant says they plan to appeal over the next several weeks and months. Jamie and Molly.
All right, guys, so you've seen that, you heard that, and I hope that gives you proper context for what happened before we get into this conversation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to these woke women and their take on this.
First up, the state of North Carolina has many people scratching their heads as a jury awarded $10 million to a white former health executive for reverse discrimination. All
right, first and foremost, nobody's scratching their head except you guys, because the dude proved in the court of law that hey, I was discriminated against, right? Because I'm white. And they fired me because I'm white. And like the lawyer said in that video, one of the jurors was a black woman that's in like an HR department or something like that, right? Works in like an HR company. She's like, yeah. They fired this man because he was white, right? And the company couldn't prove otherwise. So nobody's scratching their head over this except people who aren't really paying attention to the details, right? And also, it's not reverse discrimination. It is just discrimination.
According to Fox 46 Charlotte, Duval, a white man, was the senior vice president for marketing and communications at Novant for 5 years when he was fired and replaced by 2 women, one, a racial minority. During a diversity and inclusion initiative in 2018 that included explicit goals to remake the demographics of Novin's senior leadership. According to his attorney, a jury in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Charlotte, North Carolina Division decided that Duvall, stating in court records that Duvall proved that his race, Caucasian, and or his sex, male, was a motivating factor in Novant's health decision to terminate him. So he's saying he lost his job because he was a white man. Ladies, please weigh in on this. Does diversity include white people, first thing? And how seriously do you think companies take complaints of discrimination?
All right, before they get into this, I just want to give my opinion. Does diversity include white people? Yes, right? I mean, you wouldn't be diverse if it's just all black folks or if it's just all Latino or all Asians. That's not diverse, right? When people say diversity, by definition, it should mean a little bit of everybody, right? That's what it should mean. So to sit here and ask this question of whether or not white people should be included in diversity really just shows you how bigoted, right? And how much hatred some of these people actually have towards white people. And I hate to say that. I really do hate to accuse people of that. But again, this is just what it sounds like, right? To my ears when I hear stuff like this. Why is this even a question? Right? Does diversity just include just people of color and that's it? Or so-called people of color? Is white not a color? White is a color. And I actually need to stop using that term, people of color, because white is a color, right? White is a color, okay? So when you say people of color, white people should be included in that. But yes, diversity should include white people. And if you're not including white people in diversity, then you're not actually really for diversity. What you're actually really asking for is racial segregation.
I mean, let's be clear. He just got $10 million, right? I feel like there's some checks waiting to come our way because how many times we did not get the job?
Okay, but did you prove that you didn't get it because you're black, right? Or that you're a woman? See, that's what she's missing, okay? Because there are a lot of people like her that have this victim mentality. Again, I don't know who these women are, right? I assume some of these women are just famous for being famous, okay? But you have to prove in the court of law that you were discriminated against or that you didn't get the job because of your race or your sex. If you don't prove that in the court of law, then you're not owed anything, right? That's not a very hard concept to understand. Just because you think you didn't get the job because of your race or your sex doesn't mean that's the reason why. Most of the time, you're not getting the job because you're simply not the best candidate. Okay, that's why you're not getting the job. Okay, it don't have anything to do with your sex or your race, in my opinion, most of the time. Most of the time. I'm not saying it never happens, but the most likely conclusion is simply your resume is not good enough, or you did something in the interview that turned them off, or you wasn't a right fit for whatever reason. It happens, okay? It happens. But you don't just get money because you think you were discriminated against.
How many times we weren't the ones chosen?
Yes.
Is there a check coming? Because we
No.
should have one. I think what's interesting is that the fact that it's a woman, the fact that it was a black woman as well, is really interesting. But I don't know if diversity includes white people because the whole diverseness is normally for urban, Asian, Hispanic. I don't know if it includes it. Like,
Well,
I really
let me tell you.
Diversity is everything except whites. That's what they're saying. That's what she's saying. Again, these people are the biggest racists in the world. They don't even realize it. They don't even realize it. Again, imagine if this panel was all white women and they were saying, does diversity include black people? Right? People say these are flaming racist. Okay?
hard time trying to figure that out.
Well,
Marcel.
diversity means. Go ahead.
I was like, Lonnie's either going to tell us, or I have the textbook dictionary
Go ahead.
meaning. So the practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc. So it's different. That is the point. So I don't see white as being included
That's
in
what I'm
diversity.
saying.
What? What? The definition that you just read just means you have people from different ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and, you know, sexes, gender, whatever, right? By definition, that has to include white people because white people are a, you know, they're a race, right? Caucasian is a race. Okay, white people have a culture. Everybody has a culture, right? Or some culture they adhere to. Again, this blows my mind, right? She literally reads the definition of diversity. It literally says including different people, all different types of people. I'm not sure if whites are included in that, right? It's the conclusion that they come to. And it's interesting because I actually do know who this woman is. This is Jenny May, who was married or dating a white man, and then she's dating a rapper or married to a rapper, Young Jeezy, okay? So she's had her fair share of diversity in her life, right, in multiple different ways. So I don't understand where she's coming from with this.
No, because if it's different, it depends on what the majority is. So
Right.
it's
There's that.
higher and the majority. Look,
But in this case with this company,
that's
where diversity-
is what there's two problems here. One is not reverse discrimination. It's just discrimination.
Thank you. Somebody making just a little bit of sense. Just a little bit of sense. A little bit.
Okay, you get discriminated,
Right.
Number one, they hired 2 women to replace 1 man. I got a problem with that. Number 2,
You know what that means? It means this company, for as woke as they are, they understand that, hey, maybe these women are not as productive as this man that we replaced. Okay? And the fact that they had to replace this man with 2 women tells you that the reason why this man was fired was not because his job performance. Not because his job performance. Because if his job performance was poor, why do you need to replace him with 2 women, right? This man must have been kicking ass, right? To the point where it takes 2 women to replace his production. This is why the so-called gender pay gap is a myth, right? You see it right here. This man probably got paid what he was getting paid because he's simply more productive, right? Unfortunately, got fired for being a white male, but took 2 women to replace that man. And I guarantee you, they're not paying any of those women the same amount they're paying that man because, quite simply, they're not as productive as he is, right? They're just not.
because one woman could have done the job.
exactly.
It doesn't take
The company doesn't think that.
But
2
no,
women
that tells you
to
about
do-
inequality. That we ain't gonna even get on
Right.
that, okay? But also, this is diversity through firing instead of diversity through hiring. That is the main problem.
Yeah.
So of course, this man has a right because he was actually over the marketing. If you look at his pedigree was great.
Yeah.
They could not give in the court files, they could not give an excuse of why.
They fired
just
him.
said,
Fired
"Oh,
him.
we're gonna let it be known." So you're gonna have cases like this
Come up.
if you don't hire diverse. You
In
can't
the first
fire
place.
diverse in
You
the first
can't
place.
fire someone
Right.
in order to bring in diversity, is what you're saying. You're saying
Exactly.
add to the situation, don't take away from
Exactly.
the situation.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to have cases like this if your company goes woke, right? If you start hiring or firing people based off race, that's what's going to happen. What you actually should do is hire people based off their skill set, okay? Based off whether or not they're the best person for the job, and then you don't have to ever deal with any of this, right? When you openly say, we're hiring people because of their skin color, right? We're hiring people because of their race. What's going to happen is that you're going to have a whole bunch of white people that are going to interview for jobs and be like, I'm not getting a job because I'm white, right? And then they're going to sue companies. They're going to take legal action because there's reason to believe, right, based off this whole diversity and inclusion thing and the fact that there's a lot of people out here that don't think that diversity and inclusion includes whites, that, hey, I'm being discriminated against. Again, listen to what they're saying about what they think diversity and inclusion is. They're saying diversity and inclusion does not include whites. So if white people start to sue because they're not getting jobs, right, they probably have a case, right? Some of them probably have a case, okay? And this is why I always say you got to be careful what you ask for when it comes to politics. You got to be careful what you ask for because the pendulum always swings the other way. When you start talking about discriminating against somebody based off their race, that can backfire on you because it is a zero-sum game. There's only so many jobs that a company can offer. It's not unlimited. So somebody's going to lose in this situation based off this whole diversity and inclusion thing, which is why you simply hire the best person for the job. That's what you should be doing.
When we had affirmative action, This is when we were actually diversifying our corporations.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to figure out ways to do it. And so they're going to have these issues of people getting sued and getting a lot of money because you can't do that.
Right.
Any court of law is going to look at them and go,
Yeah.
no, you cannot do that.
I
You
think a
can't
lot of
fire
people
me.
are
Yeah, I
about
agree.
this specifically because how many times have we seen
That's
Latinos,
what I'm
Asians,
saying.
Black people that are minorities complaining about, the exact same thing. I ain't seen none of them get $10 million.
Hey, that was this dude at Tesla that sued, right? Saying that they called him the N-word, saying that was racial discrimination, and he got paid over $100 million, right? If you have a legitimate case that you can prove in court, you can get paid and you can win, right? But you have to have a legitimate case that you can prove that you've been discriminated against based off your race and sex. Again, just because you say that you've been discriminated against or you believe that you've been discriminated against because you are a so-called minority doesn't mean that that's actually the case or that you can actually prove it. Those are two different things. People like this woman right here, I don't know her name, but she seems to believe that if you happen to be a minority and you believe that you were discriminated against, you should just be paid out, regardless of whether or not you can actually prove it, right? As long as you say it, as long as you believe it, you should be paid for it. And that's nonsense. That's not how the world works. It's not how a legal system works. This white man proved that he was discriminated against, okay? And he got paid out the same way a black person or Latino, Asian person would get paid out if they could prove that they were discriminated against based off their race or their sex.
Right.
Well, it was a case. It wasn't about hiring, but it was a black employee from Tesla.
See, there we go.
$137 million for
geez.
racial discrimination. So
That is good to know.
it's
That is good to
happening.
know.
That is good to know.
$130 million. I mean, bro, I wish I could be racially discriminated against, right? Maybe I should go back to corporate America and try to be racially discriminated against. This white man just got paid $10 million, right? This black dude got paid $100 and some million. I need to be racially discriminated against in the corporate America, right? So I can get paid, right? It seems to me being racially discriminated against pays in America, right? Just based off these two cases. Doesn't matter if you're white or black. Give me some of that racism. Give me that bigotry, right? This is what people get paid. Come on now.
And it's going to keep happening.
Because I think it's important for people to hear that because I didn't know that. And I think a lot of the times, especially as minorities, we're afraid to speak up because we're afraid that if we say, I felt that, somebody was discriminating against me because of my whatever it is, and we don't speak up because we need our jobs.
Right. Now, let me ask you guys in response to this, because this is an actual fact out there too. More than half of whites, 55%, say that they, generally speaking, feel that there is a discrimination against white people in America today.
Yeah, because of panels like this, because of discussions like this, where you guys, or at least some of you on a panel, seem to suggest that diversity doesn't include white people and that it's okay to just openly discriminate against white people, right? So, of course, when people hear this type of stuff, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I'm being discriminated against. Okay? Yeah, and that's just kind of what happens, right? But the truth of the matter is that, yes, there are people from all different types of races that experience some discrimination, okay, based off their race or their sex. The problem is that in today's society, it is okay to openly discriminate against one group of people, right? That's the actual issue. If you're trying to fight discrimination, you should be fighting all discrimination, right? But that's not what's happening. It's only simply discrimination against so-called minorities. But you can openly discriminate against white people and be like, oh, well, whites are not included in diversity, right? Which is that's a problem. That's an issue. That's an issue.
Which is why you have to have policies.
Yes.
And the policies, I think the best way that we were actually attacking diversity is by looking at the population, looking at seeing how many do you have here, what's the percentage of that. So then you look at a company and say, do you even have this type of percentage? So that would help. That's what
That would help from the
action was
get-go.
about. Exactly.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't help. And I'm going to tell you why it wouldn't help. Because you still wouldn't be satisfied. You wouldn't be satisfied. Because black people specifically are only 13% of the population, right? So that means that about 1 out of 8 or 1 out of 9 black people in a group is representative of the country, right? If I guarantee you, any one of these women walked into a room with about 6 white folks, 1 black person, 2 Latinos, and 1 Asian, they'll say, oh, it's too many white people. It's not diverse enough, right? I guarantee you, a room with 6 out of 10 white folks, they would say too many, right? It's not diverse enough. Even if it does fit the population representation of this country, right? And the reason why is because when you see that with your eyes, you don't understand, like, oh, wait, there are not that many black people in this country. It's not as many black people in this country as people think. Okay, when they think about diversity, at the very least, a majority of people in the room have to be non-white. At the very least, a majority, but that's not this country. That's not an accurate representation of this country, right? So even if they implemented that, which I think they shouldn't, you should hire based off the best person for the job. But even if they implemented that and tried to make it proportional to the population, they wouldn't be satisfied. They still be complaining. And I guarantee you, if you ask any of these panel of women, do they think that their panel is diverse, right? The panel that they have right now with 1 Asian and 3 black women, or 1 Latino woman and 2 black women and 1 Asian, whatever you want to call it, no whites. They probably say, yeah, no, this is diverse, right? This is what diversity is. Even though, again, by definition, that their panel is not diverse. It's not diverse in race, and it's not diverse in thought, which I would argue that diversity of thought is way more important than diversity of race. I would much rather have diversity of thought than diversity of race, period. Now, if they replaced a black person on the panel with a white person, I would say, oh yeah, no, this is diverse. This seems to be diverse, at least when it comes to race. However, they replace a black woman on this panel with a white woman that's liberal, right, or woke, then it's still not diverse in thought, right? It's not diverse in thought, which is the problem with The View, okay? Which is why The View, which basically is probably a slightly less woke version of this show, that's why they're having so much trouble finding a conservative woman for their show, because they don't believe in a diversity of thought, right? They don't believe in a diversity of thought. They just wanted a diversity of color and the appearance of a diversity of thought, but they really don't want somebody that actually really thinks outside the box or that thinks differently from other women on the panel, right? They simply want an echo chamber. And that's what a lot of these woke revolutionaries are missing when it comes to this whole diversity conversation. They want a whole lot of different faces that think the same, but they don't want anybody that thinks differently than they do, okay? Regardless of their skin color.
Start off with having
when you're building
company.
your company and you're building your corporate, you know, how important it is to look at that and that you're hiring that way versus reacting later and being like,
firing and bringing it.
Yeah. Now
exactly.
you got people up here mad and upset and everything. It's just too much. They'll figure it out. They have to pay all this money. They're gonna figure it out.
Trust me.
Absolutely.
Well, the way to figure it out is simply hire the best person for the job. Then you never have to worry about this, right? This becomes less of an issue if you simply hire the best person for the job, right? Get rid of your diversity and inclusion departments. Hire the best person for the job. It's going to be better for your bottom line. It's going to be better for productivity. It's going to be better, less headaches, less stress. That's what these companies should do. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.